Are you familiar with the character Morgan Ainsland? Morgan Ainsland is a succubus from the video game series known as Darkstalkers by Capcom. She is attributed to being the origin point for Japan's fascination with succubi as she popularized the concept. Even though she wasn't the first, she is the most popular. With that being said, you see many succubi in various Japanese media, and I think you're going to see it in One Piece, and the characters that you see on the Straw Hat crew in One Piece are going to very well match how Morgan is presented in Darkstalkers. Because the funny thing about Morgan is that she has a clone slash daughter slash lost piece of her soul called Lilith. So in Darkstalkers, there are two succubi. One is named Lilith and one is named Morgan, with Lilith being the clone. How this comes back into One Piece is that I think STUSSY is going to join the crew alongside Robin. These characters are very similar in a lot of ways because I think they play upon the ideal of the practical and the literal versus the figurative and the fanciful that we've seen in various members before. For example, Frankie, like STUSSY, was an antagonist. But Frankie in his relationship with Luffy is very similar because one, they both wear red. Frankie just has a more fanciful version of what Luffy wears. And two, everything Luffy does is named after a weapon, but there's no weapon present. He is punching most of the time, right? So when it comes to Frankie, he literally has those weapons within his body. Everything he does is actually real. Also, Luffy is able to inflate his body and has a move called Tank Man when he achieves Gear 4th, right? Well, Frankie also inflates and he actually turns into a tank of sorts. But there's a practical reason behind both of those abilities. They're both done through engineering, whereas Luffy's abilities are done due to the powers of his devil fruit. So on one side, you have a practical character who then copies the abilities of the impractical character. And then two, Luffy is known for stretching out his arms, and Frankie can stretch out his arm as well. But while Luffy stretches out his arms due to being made of rubber due to the powers of his devil fruit, Frankie stretches out his arm because it is an engineered part of his body. It is a fist attached to a chain that is built into the base of his forearm. So that is the practical versus the fanciful, the literal versus the figurative. With Robin and STUSSY, you have a very similar relationship because while STUSSY is a clone of Buckingham STUSSY, much like how Lilith is a clone of Morgan, Robin's ability is to figuratively make clones of her body parts and herself. These are not real constructs as they have a direct line to her when they are damaged. She is damaged and they can be spawned and whisked away with a thought, whereas STUSSY literally is her own being and her own person. Continuing with that, due to the powers of the Bat fruit, you could say STUSSY literally is a succubus and does succubus-like things, as she does train the life force of both two men, Kaku and Lucy. However, Robin is a figurative succubus because she takes the visions of a succubus during her fight with Black Maria, in which she uses her flower fruit powers to take the form of a succubus. And she is figuratively the holder of the epithet demon child, but she is neither a demon nor a child at this point in the story. So that is what I'm saying. You have the literal succubus in STUSSY versus the figurative succubus in Robin. So much like in Darkstalkers, I think on the Straw Hat crew, you will have these two women present, both being succubi, but one being a figurative succubus and the other one being a literal succubus. But with that being said, give me your thoughts and tell your friends about Paulipede. What?